Okay.
Okay.
Now I'm going to try, I'm sending a request.
And there you go.
There you go. Okay, so there's a backup.
Okay. So, welcome to the fourth try of episode number 1 of
This is
True
episode one?
Tales
Oh man, I'm
of
sorry.
of of uh of True Tales of the Supernatural. My guests tonight are Ben Goldman and Sarah Lienard. That's correct?
Lienard, yeah.
Lienard, okay. And they are paranormal investigators that met on campus at what school again?
Michigan State.
Michigan
Go
State.
green.
Go white.
So I've known them for a while. They did a paranormal investigation at Even Stars Chalice, and that's where I met them at. That was a good night, actually. That was a really good night. So we're here to talk about some instances that they've had with something that they've started calling the dweller on the threshold. And then me having my background in occult and metaphysical and spiritual practices from a lot of different places. We thought it would be a good idea to get together and discuss this and let them tell their story and get it out there, and then just see what we can make of it. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. You guys go ahead and start and give us some background, like where you got started and what led you to the place that you made these discoveries at, and then just take it from there. Okay.
Yeah. Well, first off, I do want to, emphasize this is our fourth attempt at this. There,
Yes.
I have a degree in journalism. All I do is
Okay.
interview people, okay? And the amount of, trials and stipulations this one interview has had is just
Yeah.
unprecedented. It's getting to the point where if anything happens this interview, I'm gonna be convinced that whatever we're gonna be saying, just something doesn't want it to be said.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's this feeling of fire in me. I feel like we need to get this to work.
Well, it needs to come out, I think. I think this is an important topic, especially because there's paranormal investigation is like it's like become a pastime, an American pastime almost, where you have groups of individuals that are I don't know, they're some of them are probably amateur, and then some of them are more professional at it, actually, might want to try and make a living at it, putting their stuff online and getting it out there and getting it published. But these are things that I think we need to talk about because they can have far-reaching consequences.
Mhm.
So well, let's just go ahead and jump in, and then we'll get into our portion where we actually tried to do this interview like 3 times already, and so this is our fourth attempt. So go ahead, Ben.
First episode. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yes, it is. It's the very first one.
Yeah, getting off to a bit of a rocky start. Sorry. Only fitting, I guess.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, that's a good point that he brought up too. It's become such a pastime, and I feel like everyone needs to start somewhere. But the thing
Exactly.
is,
Yeah.
some people assume everyone is professional, and that's a weird thing. Being as we met at Michigan State University, a lot of people don't realize that MSU has one of the largest paranormal clubs in the Midwest. Huge, 100 people upwards were in this group during our tenure. We were in it for 3 years because senior year, my senior year was COVID, so I didn't really choose to participate in the everything virtual, and it was just a lot of online time, and I just kind of needed a break from that. So during our first 3 years of college, we were in this club, upwards of 100 people. Once a lot of the investigation started, people started dropping out because they realized it wasn't really for them, but they were still interested in the topics and discussing paranormal, just not really actively participating. So, people would come and go and that sort of thing, but huge club. And that's what it was, a school club. People would
Right.
email us I don't know if they just didn't realize it was a school club or they assumed we were, a different type of, but the amount of people that reached out to us for really serious matters, like needing exorcisms, people like we had to call the authorities a couple times because people reported they found bones in their backyard and that started some paranormal activity. And it's just, you're talking a couple 19-year-olds here. So,
Yeah,
you know, professors on campus, even staff on campus would have problems at their houses and try to reach out to us. And we stayed away from a lot of the house stuff. And I think during our first four years or 3 or 4 years on campus, we only really did one. It was at a frat house. We thought that was okay because we're 19-year-olds. So we just started this. What are we really going to do? We can't help these people. Like they
right.
need, so we deferred a lot of people, as opposed to trying to help and going in over our heads. Things change, people evolve over the course of 7, 8 years. We've been doing this,
Right.
we've done hundreds of investigations, and we're at the point where we can talk about things like the dweller, talk about these entities, do actual investigations for people and with other people.
Yeah.
The first year or so, the club had its limitations. Since it was a club, everything had to be approved through the board and everything, and there really only was one investigation per semester that we did as a club. So me, Sarah, a couple other people, the really close friends, within the club, we kind of branched off and started our own thing called Afterlife Road, where we wanted more. We wanted to do more. We took it a lot, more seriously than some of the other people that maybe were interested into the topic and hearing about what we did, but weren't too serious or wasn't right for them. So we would do our own investigations. The first year or so, we pretty much hit up every cemetery in Lansing. Every park, everywhere we could just go without worrying about, permission to be there. We followed the rules, if it was gated, if it had hours, we followed all the rules and everything. Just the places we could go and just practice and get a feel for it. And then
Maybe once or twice a week.
yeah, just every couple of days, oh, this cemetery, yeah, let's just do a drive-by. It's 7 o'clock at night, gates still open. It's getting dark though, so why not? And then once we got that practice and that we started posting online and people started following, then we had sort of, it under our belts, and we knew what we were doing, so we could reach out to places and go in places that allowed people to pay for investigations, even though we had sort of a college student card we could pull. Plus we, a lot of people were very gracious, and college kids interested in spending a Friday night at this historic museum instead of partying. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't need to pay, we'll waive the fee. Like, don't donate however much you can afford, and
Wow.
just we'll let you come. So we were very grateful for people being so grateful and allowing us to come out and spend a lot of our weekends really learning about the history and doing these investigations. We learned so much about not only local Michigan history, but how to investigate. And we accumulated hundreds. I don't know. I need to really, go and make a spreadsheet out of this and see how many of these were unique investigations.
Yes.
Return to places.
We
a lot.
return.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask, like, how long do you spend at places? We don't necessarily spend a long time during a single investigation, but we'll go back to a place a lot, like to the point where we
Okay.
get bored of, like, we won't realize we're going back to a place like week after week. Then we're like, we need to do something new. We're so bored of this. And it's like, we're bored of this because we're going back to the same place every time. Let's, so
Okay.
we do a lot of repeat investigations, but we've done hundreds. And yeah, once we graduated Michigan State, even that senior year, when we everything was virtual, and we weren't really in the club much. We're still investigating. It's going strong, and yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this
I
question.
feel like I rambled so hard
A
on
little bit.
that.
No, Well, I want to know is what attracted you to the paranormal, to doing paranormal investigations? What first brought you in to start doing this? So was there a specific experience that you had, or was it just curiosity? So,
Um, so in my case, when I was younger, I had some weird paranormal experiences happen to my family and
such
me.
as,
Um,
It's an interview, Sarah.
It's
You
an
have to you have to give information.
um, not much happened to me in particular. There was one instance where my sister and I were playing video games in one of my grandma's rooms. Uh, it's divided by this I don't know how to, like, a bar area that separates one room from the other. And on the
Mhm.
other room were a bunch of antique dolls that my grandma collected from garage sales. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah, my sister and I, we were really young, about 5, 6 years old, and then we heard like children laughing, and we
Oh,
didn't know
wow.
where that was coming from. We were playing an old GameCube game called Spyro, the little dragon character game.
Right.
Yeah, and we heard children laughing, and we didn't know where it was coming from. And I had the weirdest, like, goosebump feeling, like a vibe from the dolls in the other room, and I'm like, I gotta go look at them. So my sister followed behind me as I walked, and there was this one doll in particular that I just had the worst feeling looking at her. And I was stupid. I said, "Well, that's a really ugly doll. I don't like that doll."
Oh,
Yeah. And after I said that, I kid you not, my sister and we both saw the doll's eyes flip and move towards us. It's one of
wow.
those things that close when they're lying down and open when they're up, but she didn't
Yeah.
move, and her eyes moved themselves. So we screamed, we ran out of the house, and we wouldn't come back in until my grandma put that in the garage. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Does that sound
Well,
like a
that's a
good
good one.
origin? That's a good origin story. And she's
That's a
never
very
provoked
good.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So how about you, Ben?
Just kind of happened, I guess. I've always liked, it's always been like a curiosity in the back of my mind. So then fast forward freshman year of college, we are doing orientation, and you go around in this big room of all the clubs they had on campus, and this girl, not Sarah, but someone else in a ghost costume jumped out and handed me a, like, not a business card, just like a torn piece of paper that had a date, time and place. And I was
Oh,
like, that
wow.
was interesting. I'll just show up. And it was the paranormal club,
Oh,
packed
wow.
100 people in this room. We went on our first investigation. They always do like the first week of the club, a big investigation with everybody for free, but sort of to test the waters. Is this really for you? And then I think we're in the same group, right? I
Or
think
was it
so.
Soup
Yeah.
Cemetery? I think we were.
Yeah, we were in
Yeah.
the same group, and that's how we met. And I was like, they were like, "Is this for you?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is for me." And then
Was that when Devin passed out?
yeah.
Okay.
So
So
um
how did this person pass out? What
oh,
happened?
the spirit box kept saying stuff like blood, like um unconscious and like weird things, and this person passed out.
I was in the
Wow.
club a year prior to Ben joining the club. So um I I was in charge of like keeping everybody organized, keeping everybody safe, and someone passing out on an investigation is a really big deal.
Yeah.
Because there's headstones, we wanted to make sure she didn't hit her head, and it was a whole ordeal running to get the other e-board members and everything. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it was memorable.
keep in
Yeah.
mind, this is the first investigation, a bunch of college freshmen, to see if they want to,
Right.
investigate more. So that scared off so many people. I kid you, so many people. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is because that's the first investigation with the club. I told people it's never fun. It's just a bunch of people goofing off, not taking it seriously. And then something like that happens where someone passes out. They're like, something like that can happen. I'm out of
Yeah.
here. Then half
Yeah.
the people never come back, and then you're left with you know, a smaller club that people are serious, and then you meet people like Sarah that, okay, let's do this, you know, on our own and evolve from here. So
Okay. When it comes to like different places, I know we've talked a little bit about certain places and things that have like really impacted you. There was the one park where there's like a whole history behind the park of like of murders and things like that.
Mhm.
That was a very powerful experience for you. Did either of you ever have like I guess what you would call like a psychic experience when you were at any of these places, like where you were picking up on things and then later found out that you were actually making connections? Because like the evidence, once you started digging into it, the evidence was bearing out what you had been picking up. Did
that's
that
a
happen
great
to you
question for
guys?
Sarah. That's a great question for Sarah, I think.
Okay.
So, okay, we've been to this haunted park where there was a serial killer and murders happened. Do you want me to name the name, or do you want to keep it?
Let's keep that quiet.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
keep it. Yeah,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
Rob indicated that he might want to go out there. So
Yeah,
let's
But yeah, and then I don't also, if this gets out to a lot of people, I don't want to like a ton
I
of
don't,
people just
yeah,
running out there, you know,
Anything
not
would-
taking any
yeah.
precautions and, you know,
That's the thing. We
so
did interviews, and the people we interviewed had worse experiences than we did, and it still left a mark on us. So
wow. Okay.
would advise against, you know, people
Yeah,
going
keep
when they're not
this-
ready. Yeah.
yeah, to ourselves. But we were there at night one night, and we were walking into the behind this gated area to the left of the main trail, and I don't know what happened. I just had this whole mental image just flood my brain. Like it happened kind of before my eyes. I witnessed a man being stabbed to death on the side of the road. And it was just so it it was so descriptive. The knife, how large it was, what kind of knife it was, you know, what they were feeling at the time when it happened. And I'll be upfront, I'm not 100% sure that I believe in psychics. I'm not. Oh, the thing is, like, I never. Yes, I've had feelings and things happen, but you know, I'll get regardless of that. So I had that mental vision happen, and then afterwards, Ben shows me like the court transcript of what happened that night, the murder, and it just gave me shivers. It was exactly the same. If you want to go over it, I don't remember exactly.
No, it was
Yeah.
in the 70s. There was a murder there. There was the exact murder Sarah described, and she didn't even know there was full court transcripts of this that I showed her right after. And you wouldn't have been able to tell the current parking lot is not the parking lot that used to be the parking lot in the 70s, because this park is now defunct. It used to be
Okay.
the 5 parks in this small town, and the small town was like, we don't have the city funding to keep 5 parks active. We need to eliminate one. So they eliminated funding for this park. So it kind of went, you know, got vandalized, graffiti, all that stuff. So they tore down every indicator this was a thriving park. So the current parking lot is not the old parking lot. And what happened was someone got followed from a bar, love triangle gone wrong sort of thing, followed from the bar to this park. And then the parking lot Sarah didn't even realize she was standing in what used to be the parking lot. I pulled up, when I found crime scene photos a couple weeks after this, I got this weird feeling because I saw actual photos and evidence that Sarah was standing in the same spot the cops were in the 70s,
Okay.
looking, you know, at the scene. So she described it to a T. And
That was the weirdest thing. I never expected that. And how is that possible? And Ben told me after the fact, he's like, if I think anyone's psychic, it would have to be you after that.
yeah. But and then
Well, one question. Were you aware that there had been murders in this park? Did you have any inkling that somebody had been killed there?
I think
Did
it
you
was
know, did you have knowledge
There,
beforehand?
there was a mention. Here's the thing: when we do research, we always like to do minimum research. We don't go in completely blind to places because
Okay.
I feel like you need to have some sort of idea of what you're going into, just so for me, for our sake, if someone's like psychic or otherwise, yes,
Right.
keep completely blind. But for our sake, we
Right.
don't want to
The
go in.
investigators.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we don't want to go in and post online footage of us saying like complete misinformation because we didn't do our minimum homework. But
Exactly. Yeah.
but we like as much as possible to do the actual deep dive research into the details after to
You do.
confirm or deny.
Yeah.
I don't want to go in with bias. So there's no getting around that this place, and we'd already been there before. This was not our first investigation here. So we
Okay.
had history with this place. And we went there a few times before this. So I knew that there was a murder that happened there. And all I did was mention, hey, there's a murder. Like I said, a couple weeks after this was when I was in the library pulling old newspapers, doing actual deep dive research. I had just found the court transcripts a week before that. So there's inkling of a murder. No,
There were two different murderers there, right? We only know of one?
um, this was the only actual murder at the park that's confirmed. However, we later found out, in addition to this actual murder that happened right there, which didn't even know it was a stabbing, and not only a stabbing, he got ran over by the car too. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
Not only
Yeah.
was there this murder, there are murderers and serial killers
Wow.
are quoted, they're friends, or people that knew them at the time they were doing the killings. They were
Wow.
quote unquote obsessed with this place, all in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, after this initial murder that actually happened there. After that happened at the park in the old parking lot, and then in the early 80s it went defunct. These people, bad people that killed people, were obsessed with this defunct park that a murder happened at a decade prior. And they would
Okay.
have no experiences. We interviewed someone who didn't even know her best friend was a serial killer until 20 years later when he was caught in Virginia, because he would hop on the railway and kill homeless people. And
Wow.
that he's been killing people, he told interviewers he's been killing people since he was 14. He's been going out to that park since he was 14 until he was 18. For 4 years, he lived in Michigan in this town, and he was obsessed with this park when he allegedly was killing people before he
Okay.
got on the train, went to Virginia, and then got caught all these years later. And that's not the only instance. There's other murderers that killed someone while, they were a runaway. They ran away from home and they had nowhere to
Right.
go. They slept, in a tent at this park while they were killing people. Things like that. So there's a lot of negativity around it.
I think that this area is like a whirlpool of dark history, dark emotions, and really weird paranormal experiences. And I think that draws these people in a way.
Well,
I-
it does. It absolutely does. And so I just want to clarify just a few points for everybody that's going to be listening to this. You had no idea of what type of murders had occurred there. You didn't know any details whatsoever. So you basically stepped into what I would call a recording. It's like an incident, especially if you're standing in the same parking lot and you stepped into this energy that is left behind from that moment, and everything that was going through these people's minds, how their emotions were there. That's generating a ton of energy that is being laid down in this location. So basically, whether you want to believe it or not, you're a receptor. So you stepped into it and you started picking up on it. So I don't know what to tell you, but it's, you know, that's what you are. I mean, you were able to pick up on it, you were able to see it, and then it was later, you know, bore out by the research that Ben did and bringing this all together. So,
And listen, it's to your point too. If she had just said, "Hey, I think someone was killed here," I would have been like, "Yeah,
yeah,
go figure,"
but
and moved on. But the details,
the
the
details,
exact
yeah,
spot too, and details, and it was more than just, "I think someone was murdered here," which, you
right.
know, she could have guessed, but the details were beyond guessing. It was
Right.
strange.
Yeah, there's a certain point. I mean, you can guess one or two things, but then when you start laying them out in detail and this happened and then this happened and then there was this that occurred and then blah blah blah. There's no way to deny that at that point,
Right.
you know. So
And then I later interviewed an actual psychic, someone that actually believes in psychics and would identify as a psychic, there. And some of the things this psychic was saying correlated exactly with, other things Sarah and I were picking up on in terms of like certain entities that might be there, which I know we didn't want to go into last time, an off chance that you or other people go out there, it would
right,
influence, in terms of entities and stuff. But there have been entities picked up on, beyond just like, this guy was killed, I think this guy's out here, and it's beyond just the obvious, anyone can find,
right,
a court transcript and think the murder victim is haunting there, so exact entities that are more, fringe topics and a little bit more out there
right,
that have to be like, you would have to know. It was kind of spooky. It's like you would have to know our private conversations off camera, just on our own, to know that stuff. I mean, over the years, we've always talked about like the bigger picture type of stuff, like how this can
okay,
fit in with this other investigation, or have other people experience this entity, or like talking about like the stuff we're talking about the dweller and stuff. We've always had these sort of conversations. We just never really put them in. This is the first time we're sort of putting it in something and talking about it, because at the beginning, I started off, what are we, 18, 19-year-olds? What do we know? No one wants to listen to an 18-year-old talk about, I just saw the dweller on the threshold. It's like, okay,
yeah,
been on 2 investigations, move on. It's like,
right,
no one
yeah,
wants to listen to that, but that also feels a little bit of, well, what do we really know? We're in over our heads, a lot of these people reaching out to us with all these serious things, are we taking it too serious? All these thoughts that you have, sort of conflicting thoughts. You have these thoughts when you're first starting, and you start young, right? You have to think,
exactly,
we're
yeah,
18 years old, 19 years old when we're starting this. So we can't even go to a bar, but we can go to a graveyard and encounter the dweller on the threshold. Okay. So
right,
this is where we're at right now. We are going out to haunted places because we can't go with our 21-year-old friends at MSU to the bar. So we have to find something else to do on a Friday night. And then Sarah turned 21 before us, and she's still stuck around going to haunted
well,
places. So,
that's cool,
yeah. So we started off young. We had these conversations, but we never put them in anything for some of those reasons, And then
well,
also,
it sort of sounds like you're starting to put there are connections that are being made now between the different investigations that you guys are going on at this point, right?
we've always had those conversations. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we've always had those conversations. We've always just, in stuff we put online and put out there, we've always sort of just put bare minimum commentary, right? We just kind of put what was recorded and what can be presented through real in the moment recording, and left the commentary for just us privately. We just kind of want to put it out there, and other people can comment on it, put their own opinions on it. We can go back and forth. Was it a ghost? Was it this? Was it the same entity as here? Was it connected at all to this investigation? Why did this happen now and not last week? All these things. But
With the videos that we made in the past, it was just what happened. We cut out a lot of us talking about what happened to us or how we felt about it, because it would, I don't know exactly why, but in my case, I was a physics major at the time, and I'm still doing medical lab science. And it's just, I felt that it might look bad if I were to talk about these paranormal things, given my
Yeah.
field, or that people wouldn't take me as seriously. But we all had different reasons for like cutting that part out of our videos.
To your point too, Sarah, when you've done 2 investigations and you're 18 years old, and now you're talking about, did I just see the dweller on the threshold? Someone can easily look, you have to admit, Rocky, if you're 18 years old, been doing this twice, and you say, having a conversation like we're having now, it's easy to look at them and go, that's a little woo-woo, that's a little out there. But when you're 8 years in and you have context for it, and you
Right.
have to show for it, and you can actually back up what you're saying, then
Right.
it gets out there and it gets more, it doesn't seem, because I think what we're getting at is we're self-aware sometimes when we say, okay, let's take a step back, that sounds crazy.
Okay.
But what we're talking about now is not crazy, because
No.
we may have thought that when we first encountered it, like, this is, what are we talking about here? But the more we talk to people and we contextualize it, we have context for it, and that's important.
Right. Well, that is important. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that no matter, how much experience you might have and how much, evidence you might be able to present, they're still not going to believe it. They're still going to think you're woo-woo. They're still going to think, why are you wasting your time doing this stuff? But then there are other people that are open-minded and do have a sense of curiosity and want to know the answers to some of these things. If you can ever really say that you've actually found answers to any of it. I know I've been doing this since I was like 17 myself, and even before that, but really seriously began at 17. And still, it's like the more I know, the more I realize I don't know anything. Okay, there's still these huge questions that are floating around out there, and I'm sure you feel the same way. That the more you seem to get a handle on, the less you're able to like really grasp the whole picture. It's like it's shifting. It shifts a lot.
Yeah. I was actually talking to Sarah about this right before we hopped on here.
Okay.
He went from, to your point of, the more you know, the more questions you have. We went from, we're at an investigation, and then, a toy, on the table gets knocked over, or something, and then we're trying to prove, did a ghost do that? Did a ghost knock this toy over? We went from something just is here, and then just, oh, how can we prove that this is a ghost of a person died doing this, to now we're trying to prove the dweller on the threshold entity. You go from this to this, and we haven't even proved the toy falling. We haven't proved that yet, but now we have just over time gotten comfortable and confirmed maybe not the objective truth, but our beliefs that now, I don't know, do you think, Rocky, Sarah and I talked about this, do you think it's easier at this stage to, because if we prove the dweller on the entity threshold, that proves everything else that hasn't been proved yet up to this point. So do you think it's easier to prove the umbrella concept? Because the implications of proving the dweller would imply that the toy moving was something paranormal.
Well, I do know this: the dweller goes back centuries, and it is a common theme in most spiritual development of people that are practicing magic, witchcraft, whether it's witchcraft or ceremonial magic or primal spiritual practice, which some people call shamanism. There is a spirit there that when people are involved in spiritual endeavors, which you guys are, there's a spirit that shows up that challenges those people that are participating in this. Normally it shows up to a student to challenge them. It's like there to say, are you ready to take the next step? Because beyond this threshold, it's a very liminal time. And you're stepping into these places that aren't actually places. They're in between times. Even though it may look real, it may feel real, but there's a sense there that it's not real. It's a place that is not a place. It's a time that is not a time. It is a feeling that overwhelms. And you know you're in the presence of something much greater than what you are. And this being called the dweller on the threshold comes to challenge. It's like, okay, you have to be careful from here on out. If you can face me, you should be able to face whatever it is beyond this point. Now, I know when it happened with me, I was studying ritual magic through the Golden Dawn, and I was in bed, and it showed up in my doorway. It filled the whole doorway. It was cloaked and hooded. It was totally black except for two big, huge, red glowing eyes. And it stood there and it started coming into the room. I immediately switched into, protection and defense and started throwing out protections and incantations and everything else. And it paused, it stopped. And then it backed up. It backed back into the threshold and disappeared. It showed up one more time in a dream. And it was like a combative dream. And I saw it, and I heard in my head, be careful. So I saw it twice. Once in my bed, in the doorway of my bedroom, and once in a dream. So the dweller on the threshold has there's been a lot of writings about it. There's different thoughts on its entire purpose. Some is there to show that it's, that it past this point, there's no returning. Once you start, you're never going to get off this path. You can try, but I don't know. It's kind of like a drug in a way, because you don't feel, you always feel like I constantly, it's like, man, I just want to drink beer and watch the football game. Okay. But for me, that's never going to be all there is to it, because I know there's so much more out there than ordinary reality. I know it for a fact. And nobody can convince me otherwise, because I have myself as a witness, and I'm the greatest witness there is. So you can't shake my belief in this. So this is what I feel is happening to you guys, that this thing is there going, once you pass this point, there is no turning back. Okay. And then you have to decide why you're doing what you're doing. There's this question that comes with that. For me, it became, okay, why are you continuing to pursue this? What is your ultimate goal? Why do you want to get out of this? And what it eventually boiled down to with me, because all of a sudden I started getting this influx of people that were like, there is something happening in my house that I have no control over. I don't know what the hell is going on. I am scared to death. Is there anything you can do to help me? And that's when I suddenly found out, okay, maybe this is why all of this is happening to me, because I now have a responsibility to these other people that know less than I know. And it is my responsibility to serve them by helping them with the spiritual problems and the paranormal problems that they have, to go in and help them get rid of whatever this haint is and get it out of the house. So for me, it became like a path of service. So it was like what it boiled down to was like, this is me serving the mystery, that great mystery that some people want to call God, some people want to call nirvana, whatever you want to call it. What it boils down to is that we can never really fully comprehend what that is, except it loves us. It's created us. It created everything, and it wants the best for us. And so it gives us jobs because even though it's really good and loving, there are other things out there that are not so good and loving. And sometimes we run up against these things. So I'm going to shut up and let you two talk some more because
Oh,
I'm supposed to be
Rocky, it's your
interviewing
show.
you.
It's your show. Don't fall into that trap of you should. It's people are coming on here first for you. You should talk in your first episode. Come on, but no.
But
What
yeah, go ahead.
I thought, again, another reason why, because when we post things, historically it's been within a couple of days of us going out there. You really need to think about things, and there's a bigger picture to, and
Yes.
context is key. So something I just realized too is the timing of when because we think we experienced a dweller one time. I think I experienced it a second time. That's the impetus, I think, for all of this, is because I had a experience recently that I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it reminded me of. And then I realized after it's the same thing we experienced, that we thought was a dweller. So the first time we experienced it, I'm realizing now that was our big final investigation of college before we all graduated and moved away. And so there's a lot of talk at the time. Are we going to keep doing this? It's going to be harder. We can't do investigations every 2 days now. We live 3 hours away from each other, some of us, So when we investigate now, it's like it's an event. We all come together, we catch up. We're coming together for an investigation. It wasn't like that before. It was we can do 3 a night, 3 times a week, 9 investigations a week. So there was a lot of talk at the time, we're graduating, we got these jobs lined up. Let's do one final hurrah at this place called Stimson Hospital, which is our most frequented location. We just went back a few weeks ago for my birthday. We've been here the most out of any place. We were, I believe, the first actual team to investigate there as well. I had emailed them repeatedly because it's only about 20 miles from where we lived at the time. And there's all this press about how it used to be abandoned and the new owners bought it and how haunted it was. And I was jealous that this place is so close and now there's new owners and they're kind of the gatekeepers and, I need to get through them,
Right.
So I was like emailing them, hey, can we investigate? And they're like, we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. And then I think I annoyed them enough where they let us come once. And then we went and we filmed, and they had no prior investigation crew. They're like, okay, these guys are annoying. Let's let them come investigate, So we did. It still looked abandoned. You couldn't tell what any of the rooms were. And then that generated some interest, and they sort of had to, over time, kind of develop some sort of protocol for letting other people in. So we've been back pretty much every year since then. And every time we go, significant things happen. And it seems to emanate from this room at the top of a staircase that used to be the old patient room. Everyone thinks when you go to a, hospital, oh, got to check out the morgue, got to check out the creepy basement. For us, we found that the staircase, that at the top of the staircase, there's a mirror, and then you turn kind of left, cross the threshold into the room that's right there, and that room was the old patient room. That to us has been a majority of the activity occurring on that staircase and in that room. At the base of the staircase too, there's all these haunted objects. They have a traveling museum, so they have some objects and stuff as well. So we've been investigating that area at the base of the stairs and seen lights travel up the staircase or heard stuff upstairs. This one room, this patient room, objects moving, voices, EVPs, disembodied, you name it. We've been growled at, hissed at, all this activity in this one room. And we were there for this last hurrah, and you want to talk about the feeling we got? And well, first of all, we named the entity. We figured out, because they've been collecting these old newspaper clippings and things of actual patient deaths and obituaries. So we were going through there, and we figured out the name of an entity we were talking to. And then Sarah put out her hand, and her hand got colder, and you could see on our thermal imaging camera, she asked the entity to touch her hand, and it actually dropped 10 degrees in temperature. So after having this literal hands-on, physical contact with an entity we named, and it's super rare to name an entity we found. After that, you want to talk about what we felt?
So, while we were there, we were interacting with the entity Ben was talking about. The name, it's just a name. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, we can mention it, Francis.
Francis.
Yeah.
So Francis was a patient at Stimson Hospital. We found an old newspaper clipping, like Ben said. He had a stroke while he was there, and that
brain aneurysm.
brain
aneurysm. Yeah. But we found the whole detail. It wasn't just like, oh, this guy had a stroke. Like, you could see actual details.
Yeah. So that night, actually, Ben, me, and another investigator who was with us, we had a dream where we lost feeling on one half of our body and everything.
3 of you did this?
Okay, 3 of us did.
We all had the same dream.
The same dream. Okay.
And we experienced symptoms that would have aligned with how this patient died.
Because it was a very lucid dream where I lost the complete function of half of my body.
I can actually still remember this dream 6 years later.
Completely real. But that I'm surprised we didn't dream about the dweller, which was terrifying. So after we had my hand get really cold on thermal when I asked something to hold it, Ben, me, and 2 other investigators were in that room. One was asleep on the bed.
She missed the whole thing. She was sleeping.
Okay.
That's what happens when it's 4 a.m. We've been up all day.
But we were just facing the doorway, and I'll say my recollection of the event is that I felt something came up the stairwell and was looking at us through the doorway. It was
the door was closed.
What?
The door was closed, right, at the time, or
no?
Oh, never mind.
The door was open. We made Bree get up to close it.
Yeah, because we couldn't.
Yeah.
We were too scared.
So we felt something come up the stairwell and linger in that doorway, and it felt like it was I had a feeling of dread, the worst feeling of existential dread. Like, I was about to die at that moment. I felt like there was something there that was just waiting to attack us, or something of that nature. It was so primal, the feeling of fight or flight, like that. I knew I was in real danger. And I look over to Ben, he's like freaking out too, and nobody else, just me and just Ben and I felt this way.
Well, there's only one other person there
who was awake.
Yeah.
But it was bizarre. I can't explain it. It was this dark, looming entity in the doorway.
So you were physically able to see it?
It
or
was
did you
mind's eye thing.
Okay, but you knew that it was there. You could tell that it was there. Okay.
Yeah, and we could, a lot of the times when Ben or I see something in our mind eye, we're able to draw it afterwards. Did we draw this?
I think this one we either drew it or we talked about it in such detail we got the same impression.
Yeah.
Sarah and I are very linked. We may not feel we always are on the same page. We have we can kind of give each other a certain look, and we already know how the other is feeling. Even if she, when she was talking even before about the stabbing victim.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
got a little chest pain. So, and I told her that. And then that's kind of, I think, what spawned the conversation. So we both, even if we're not exactly locked on to the exact extent of the experience, if we talk to each other, we put puzzle pieces together where chest pain, oh, wait, you got a mind's eye vision of, the stabbing, or
Investigating together
yeah.
for years.
But this, and usually
Yeah.
it's like that. Usually it's like that, where it's like we each have puzzle pieces.
Mhm.
This was different. It was we were so locked on. I've never had like a mind's eye thing like that. Only a couple times I can even count anything close to a mind's eye, sort of feeling. This was one of them, and it was significant. We both felt, the best way I could describe how I felt then was, those horror movies where it's like a normal family, and then like The Strangers or something, where someone breaks in, an intruder in the house, and
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
coming up the staircase to, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the feeling I got. It felt like an intruder. Again, we've been here so many times. It felt like nothing we've experienced there before on any investigation, but especially here. We've been here
Okay.
so many times, 7, 8 times already at this point. It felt like an intruder. It felt different, and it felt like
It felt like
someone
it wasn't
broke in.
supposed to be there.
Yeah, and what the scariest part too, I mentioned this, I think before, that staircase, that area where it came up, that wasn't original to the hospital at the time. So if it was an intruder that walked through the door, because the front door is there, and then the staircase, coming up. If there was an entity that knew the front door was there, walked through the front door, essentially broke in, if we're using this analogy, broke into the building and came to, unannounced, uninvited, crashing our investigation, it had to be an intelligent entity
Yes.
to know that this is a new space that an entity theoretically would not have known.
It wasn't like the video replaying, like you said earlier. It wasn't something like burned into the memory of time. It was something that we felt was active at that time and at that space, that was intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was definitely an intelligent energy. It sounds, well, you have your different classifications of hauntings. You have like intelligent entities, and you have, residual hauntings and stuff like that. The residual is like the movie playing over and over again. Intelligent entities, and they come in all different levels, from like animal spirits up to, beyond, up to humans. There are nature spirits, you name it, and up to different types. And the dweller is a specific type of entity, and he's there. It is there, I should say, because it doesn't really have a gender. But it is there to scare the living crap out of you, because it's that point. It's like, okay, so this is it. Are you going to face this? Because if you can face this, then it prepares you for the other things that you're going to face later on.
And I had the
So,
belief, Rocky, at the time. At the time, and I think this is part of why I focused on some of these details, that, I brought to Sarah's attention, like, that wasn't even the original staircase. It's intelligent.
yes,
She's like,
right.
yeah. She's like, yeah, okay. But to me, at that time, I had the belief that every haunting was residual. That's what I could wrap my head around. I came
Yeah.
into this when I was like 18, 19, when we started this. I didn't believe in ghosts. I was always curious about it, but I was skeptical about it. And then I was forced to, rethink some of these things and learn, and do things.
Right.
But I believe at the time, I was like, I can get behind residual hauntings. I believe in residual. I think most hauntings are residual hauntings. I think
Most of them are.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
most
think
of them
all
are.
hauntings are residual. This challenges that belief, So
Well, yeah.
that was a turning point, I think, to beyond some of the stubborn beliefs you you may have, and
Well, it
start.
does. It makes you question everything that you believed up to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's supposed to. I mean, one of the mottos of the mystery schools is know yourself. That is like the most important one, is for you to know who you are and why you are here. And the that guardian is part of that. It's part of that whole experience, because you get to know who you are real quick when you're facing something like this, because you're either gonna, excuse the expression, crap your pants and run, or you're gonna stand firm, and know that what you're doing, there's a reason for what you're doing. You may not know that reason yet, but there is a reason there. And I think it's at that moment, I know it was for me, it was at that moment that I realized there's a reason I'm doing all this. I'm not just doing this to have fun. That there is a reason that I'm doing this, a deeper purpose behind all of this. And I feel that that's what you guys were experiencing too. That it was coming to call you out, was what it was doing. Okay, you've gone this far. Let's see if you're going to go the full, you're going to go the full mile, or
It's
if you're
easy
going to
enough.
stop right here.
It's easy for you. You're graduating. You guys are moving apart. You guys are moving on. It's easy for you to stop. Are you going to?
Are you going to?
Well, the answer
So-
is no.
Yeah, the answer was no.
So, heck, even this interview, if suddenly something happens and it's all corrupted, we're not going to stop. We're going to do it a
No.
fifth time, a sixth time.
Exactly.
You're going to have a full-on show of 20 episodes, but it's all just the first one.
Yeah. Well, we'll give a little bit of history on that. Like the first time we started to doing this, it was always some sort of technical glitch that was going on, to where it either the audio was corrupted or the video was corrupted. I know my computer kept crashing.
Oh shit.
No,
What?
You just froze.
you're
twice.
glitching out. You didn't even finish
Am
the
I
sentence.
glitching out right now?
Yeah, I'm going to start here. At least it will be captured on my phone in case.
Okay. Well, am I back?
You're back now, but
Okay. Well, that was just our friend stepping in to say hi. Here I am. So, but the funny thing is because I told you guys I was going to go to my allies and ask my allies what was going on. And I expected this big metaphysical, mystical stuff. And they told me, said, you need to buy a new laptop. That's what they said. And that's what I did. So, and now it's recording. Everything is recording except for that one little glitch. And I think that's just to let us know that nothing is a coincidence.
yeah. I mean,
Mark that in your mind.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a coincidence.
yeah, you can say it was a computer, but it was more than just that.
No, it was
Our end,
definitely
too.
more than
On
that.
our end, we had stuff move. We had the hard drive connected to my computer just moved on its own.
Moved. Yeah.
And we had other things happen outside of it. Just phone call on the phone we tried over.
Yes.
Facebook.
Yeah.
That had problems. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. That was amazing. That was something.
Really quickly, how much time do we have left?
Oh, we can go for. We're good.
That's a dangerous question, Sarah.
I think we should talk about what happened at the park with the cat and the police, because that's a huge thing.
Yeah, go
that
for it.
spurred us. Me. And
That's
okay.
your story.
Well, before that, the name, the Dweller on the Threshold, I looked it up. It's what came to me at the moment when Ben and I were speaking about this entity. Apparently,
Now, did this just jump in your head? This
Yeah,
name?
it just came
Yeah.
to me. Yeah. It was
I had
between,
no idea what you're talking about.
it was between three things. It was between
Okay.
Dweller on the Threshold, the guardian of the threshold, or the angel of the labyrinth.
Which
And
it
They're
goes by
all the same
name.
thing.
Yeah,
They're the same thing.
that's the thing that when I was actually looking to fact check some of the stuff she was just spitting out like randomly, like stream of conscious,
Yeah,
it goes by so many people discuss the dweller in so many different contexts and texts. Some of them, fiction works like Twin Peaks have adapted it, but a lot of them, most of them are not and go long before that, and they go by different
yes,
names, different depictions, but the same entity.
yeah,
yes, exactly.
the odd thing is I wrote a poem years ago that was titled that, about an entity like this. So I think I don't know, it's weird that some of the things that we have on investigations, or like entities we encounter, were things that I've already written about in the past.
It's like echoes of the past.
Echoes of the past, yeah.
Well, I could say all kinds of things, but I'm not going to. All I know is that, like I said, there's no such thing as coincidence. You meet people for a reason. And then that those reasons are varied and many. So, like I said, just keep in mind that there's no such thing as a coincidence. That these things, you think you're doing it, and then other times you go, this really feels like this was all planned out beforehand. Like somebody picked you up and sat you down and said, here you go check this out, and then they'll back off. And this is another function of that entity that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
To pick you up and set you down in certain places.
I have a podcast where I talk to it's called Filming the Supernatural, talking about the filming side of like paranormal movies and docs and television and stuff. And we joke sometimes that when we are directing projects or short films and stuff about this, I'm the director. I'm supposed to be the one directing this. Do I give a credit to this entity? Hey, what do you want me to put you as in the credits? Because you, Dweller, are the real director, not me. I'll take a seat. I'll take a step back and co-directed Ben and Dweller. Sometimes it feels like there's a real director behind the scenes. There's not one of us. So that's also a concept we've talked about.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
The weirdest thing is the strange synchronicities that we've experienced, and the coincidences all came together at that park.
Yeah.
On that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want
And
to?
this was this way before the hospital?
Yeah.
So the timeline of events.
That's okay, yeah.
We started fall of 2017, so like barely in 2017, like Halloween weekend of 2017.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
really we started in 2018 was our first full year, right?
Okay, yeah.
So 2018 was all the cemeteries, parks, let's just gain experience before we start actually having other people view us as trying to come up as professional when we're in their businesses and their places. So then 2019 was the year that we started reaching out to places and going into real investigations. And it was in February of 2019 that we first investigated the hospital.
Okay.
That was our first investigation in the hospital. We later returned a couple times each year. That August, so that same year, but later, I believe it was that August, we investigated this park for the first time. So it was that year we went to both investigations for the first time, then kind of side by side. These are our two most frequented places, which perhaps is, not coincidental that the places we've been at the most have the most profound experiences. I think it might be like both things helping each other out, where we're there longer, so we have more time to experience it, but also we experience these things there, so we're driven to go there more often. So it's kind of like both things working to help each other. But over time, over the past since 2019, we've gone to both places pretty much side by side. I believe the Dweller experience at the hospital, again, because none of this stuff was like documented. That's what helps me know when we did things, is because we post stuff about it, so I can find the
Well,
post.
Wasn't it the anniversary of the murder when we accidentally went there on that day?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't know what year that was. I think it was
Um,
it was around the same time. It was 2021, 2022. With both the first time we went to these places was within a year, and then when we had a Dweller experience, then the cat story Sarah's about to tell within a year. It was both of them were shortly before Even Stars. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
If not within like a month, where you can say like, oh, we just had this happen, and you're like, just had it happen. It was 6 months ago, Ben. But like it was within a year of that, because I know when
Okay.
Even Stars stands out as one of my favorite investigations, just because we had all this crap happen and it got kind of dark and got kind of scary. Then we went to Even Stars and it was a complete 180. It was the
Right.
most peaceful, most welcoming energy. Still just as much activity happened, but it was like very welcoming and peaceful energy. And I was telling everyone, I was so excited. See, you can have great experiences and not be scared
Exactly. Yeah.
investigations. So Even Stars was, I know, a big thing that really got me, because after the Dweller, we were scared to investigate a little bit. At least I was. It was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of just more curious after that. I want to see what else is out there after we
Yeah.
experienced that. But going back to this park, we were there one night and I was meditating in the field area behind the fence, and
There's a fence there.
there's a fence there.
So she didn't describe it well, but you come up on this abandoned park and there's just like this hill. It's the infamous hill. Everyone describes this hill. And up at the top of the hill, there's some trees and a fence. Okay.
Yeah, there's this open field area behind the fence. I was sitting down, I was meditating a little bit. I called forth in my mind a guide to come and help us on the investigation. And Ben's holding his thermal camera facing the entrance of the gate. And he sees a very dark red blob of heat coming at us, directly at us, on the like that's really close to the ground. And he freaks out. And he's like, he's freaking out. And then I see a cat. It's a cat that's coming towards us.
Well, for
Huh?
context, through the little lens, it looked bigger than it looked like a pig. I was a little freaked out. There's like a pig, charging at it. I didn't think it was a ghost. I just thought it was like a animal bigger than a cat. But anyway.
Okay.
It was a cat. It's a tuxedo cat. So I think it's really funny. A little man in black,
Very
Um,
cool. Okay.
Yeah. And I got this immediate feeling that this cat wanted us to follow it, that it is what I, called forward for. And all of them were like, Sarah, that's just the stupidest thing. Like, why would we follow a cat? Will it even lead us anywhere? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I think we really should follow the cat. So we follow it through the woods and we reach another clearing on the hill with this really old pine tree. And the cat goes underneath the tree. And this was when everything shifted. I was kind of head first and I see a large mass of something underneath that tree. And I'm frozen, and our other friend who was there, she went in head first. She's like, here, I'm gonna go look at it. So she pulls at it. It's a big blue blanket that's wrapped around something large. And she pulls it from under the tree. I'm like, be careful, don't, this might be something bad. I got a bad feeling about it. So she tried to cover her hands and like pull it out. We wanted to look at it, of course. So after it was unwrapped, there was a pair of dirty blue jeans wrapped inside of the blanket. And
Wow.
inside of the blue jeans, we found bones. Yeah,
Once the bones fell out of the blue jeans, we dropped
we dropped everything.
it, stepped away,
Yeah.
saw a bunch of bones scattered amongst, in the ground.
Yeah. And we called the police immediately after.
Okay.
The cat
All
was
right.
still around us the whole time. And when the police officer showed up,
Oh,
the cat was
yeah. So we were filming stuff. So we had a spirit board with us, and when we called the cops, well, first of all, backtracking, all the cops are scared of this place because back in the 80s during the Satanic Panic, that was happening and hit this place hard. 'Cause if you know Rocky, MSU was sort of like
Right.
center with the steam tunnels and the Dungeons Dragons. The kid disappeared, so all these
Yes.
within a 20-25 mile radius of MSU were hit hard by Satanic Panic. All while all this dark stuff was happening in the park.
Yeah.
So the cops were pranked all the time with like people, some of it genuine, like finding ritual remains. Some of it people just prank the cops by stabbing squirrels against the trees and taking their genitals to mess with the cops. So the cops all still this day don't like this park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
there were
they said to meet by the road because they didn't want to go
there
in.
were supposed coven rituals that went place there, satanic rituals. There was a motorbike crew that were killed there.
Oh yeah, I forgot there were more murders there. Yeah, people were angry that when it went abandoned, some locals took it upon themselves to make the funding for some BMX, bike, little slopes.
Yeah.
And some of the people that had property there didn't like that now this once quiet abandoned park was noisy again with bikes and motorbikes. So they put little wiring to essentially have people go over it, and there was confirmed one person that actually died. A lot of people got injured. But still, even the people that got injured, that sort of negativity,
Well, it builds on the on what's already there. It starts with the first murder and it just builds from there because the first murder opens up a portal, maybe, who knows. But whatever, it's wanting to build itself more, whatever this thing is, if it was called through. And that's what I'm getting, is that something was called through from the first murder and now it's absorbing energy. So
I think it was a perfect combination storm of first murder, right? That opens and something to be called through, and then you have it go abandoned. At the same time, Satanic Panic starts. So then there's all this panic and people going out there because a lot of the rituals people found during the 80s weren't genuine. They were just sort of copycat kids.
Right, yeah.
Panic on it. But still, that's people going out there and still killing animals, even if it wasn't that's still blood absorbing in the ground. So there's all these things happening at once.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But anyways, the cops like this area. We said, let's meet at the road. Let's bring we don't want these cops to show up and see a bunch of kids with spirit boards and being like, oh, you people. So we grabbed everything, but we didn't. And we left a spirit board right next to the tree. So this cop comes up. He's this big guy. He's tough. He's all cocky and confident. He's going to come in and be like, all right, I'll take care of this. So he follows us up to the tree and he sees this black cat sitting on a spirit board. He shrieks like a little girl. And then he yells at the cat, get your spiritual ass away from me. And then his whole demeanor changed. He was scared. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Well, can I tell you something? The cops have probably been called to this place, like you said, numerous times. But some of the times when they were called out there, probably real life paranormal activity happened while they were there. And so cops see a lot more than they talk about. I know that for a fact. and they don't talk about it to the general public. They'll talk about it. So as soon as he saw that, he had already been informed. Hey, he's probably heard all kinds of stories about the things that were happening out there, and he knows the history of the place to begin with. So he's putting that act was not just for you guys. That act was for himself too. This bravado, he's coming out and he's being all tough, and that's what he's telling himself. I'm all tough, until he sees the cat and the board, and then it's a whole nother story, Wow.
And you Ben interviewed the retired sheriff of that.
Oh, okay.
I interviewed the retired detective that was there in the 80s, and he told me a lot of things too. So there's the park, and then there's the woods surrounding the park, right? Then on the flip side of the woods, they eventually lead to the large cemetery. So the cemetery shares the same woods with the park. And then in between, you can't necessarily walk from one to the other, because in between in those woods is private property. So the park is not private. The cemetery obviously is a cemetery, but in between it gets kind of, you're navigating.
It's kind of iffy. Yeah. Like you don't know whether you're on private property or not.
1 minute you're on private property, 1 minute you're next. It's kind of hard. But anyways, the welcome to the town sign, all towns have that welcome,
Right.
It's in the cemetery. So that's like the city line. So the woods, when people report things, back in the 80s about like this happened in the woods, it got kind of tricky because that's city limits.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, there's that sort of jurisdiction stuff where that kind of got them out of necessarily, if they didn't want to deal with a, perceived ritualistic thing. Oh, we don't have to deal with it. It's not our jurisdiction. Or they got really weird. You just got the sense there's a lot of things they just, even now aren't comfortable talking about. You got the sense that there's more to the story that even someone who agrees to talk on camera would discuss.
Okay. Do you still have these interviews?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I had I would love to listen to some of those. I really would.
I can send you. I made a short film about all this. It screened internationally last year in film festivals.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I can send you the link to the short film. I just don't know if you want everything, or if you just want little bits and pieces. So many of the people too were scared to be on camera fully, so they were like, "Can I do audio only, and you can include my voice?" I'm like, I don't care. I just want the information.
Yeah.
Question is,
I'm gonna close the blinds.
All of this before you go there yourself with us.
Right. I know. Yeah. I would like to hear it. I would like to go visit first, and then maybe hear everything that you guys have accumulated over the years with this place. Wow. Yeah. This is.
And after we called the cops too, we were hoping for some update about it. A couple of the bones were taken, a couple were left there. The blanket is still there to this day. And we have had no update on what came about of that case with the bones.
But you didn't find like a skull. It was more like leg bones and
what was it was vertebrae, and it was one of the lower what was that?
There were a lot of big,
it was a bone that represented more of like a pelvis shape, but it wasn't a pelvis. It was a different bone, but I can't remember the name.
Listen, we're not biologists.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, no.
We knew what the bones were, we wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Did they ever tell you if they were human or not?
No. They never
tried following up, and there's no follow up. And the blue jeans and the bones are gone, but the blanket is still there.
Yeah. The thing is, I thought in the back of my head it might be a dog, but why would somebody wrap a dog up in a blanket and jeans and put it under a tree in this park that nobody goes to anymore, that's rumored to have really bad things happen there? So yeah.
Hmm.
We
find
know.
we find like bones there every time we go. It seems like there's a possibility that we find we found like deer skulls or just random bones, never a complete skeleton, no, just like under this one tree.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the real kicker, Rocky. I was editing this short film because again we kept going out there, and I was just like, there's no ending to the short film. We're making a short film, and like every time we go, we have more questions, and like we're just there's no ending. We're
yeah,
not this. We're just stopping, and then we found the bones. And I'm like, that feels like a stopping point. Okay, so
right, yeah,
draw a line in the sand. This
right.
will be the ending. Especially if this is a police case. Um, so it felt right to end the story there. And
That's good.
I'm pulling the footage, and this is all around the same time. This was just a couple weeks after Sarah had the psychic thing that happened there. So I'm doing all the deep dive research, pulling the crime scene photos and everything that I mentioned I found at the library.
Right.
Uh, yeah, the date of
Wow.
the murder was the exact date we found the bones. I believe it was 50 years to the day.
50 years to the day.
Yes, that there was a new crime scene at this park.
And this is something else, but we've been there after the fact, after we found the bones, and we still feel like there are still perhaps bodies in that.
It would not surprise me. It would
Oh
not
yeah,
surprise me at all.
you'll see in if you ever if we ever get you out to this park and then you later watch the short film, we interviewed someone who the reason she was all excited to be on camera and one, but then last minute she wanted me to disguise her identity because she
Hmm.
didn't want to be on camera saying that she thought there were bodies out there.
Hmm.
Such a strong belief of hers that there were bodies out in the park that she didn't want to be on camera because of it.
Bodies from her friend who
Oh yeah,
was
it
the
was
serial
it was the
killer.
person who's
Yeah.
yeah. So
Oh, so it was a friend of the person that had done the killings.
yeah, and she
Yeah.
didn't know until she saw on the news
Okay.
that her best friend when she was in high school did all these horrible things.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of darkness there, but also, like you said, what's a coincidence? How many times do things like this need to align so perfectly where, Sarah has this exact vision just weeks before the murder anniversary, and then we end up going
Right.
back on the murder anniversary without realizing it and finding these bones. Like how many do
Well,
you still think it's a coincidence, Sarah? Did we ever think it was a coincidence?
I think that I don't know how to I'm not going to get into it, but I just think that the things that we are drawn to and the things that we are pulled towards have a greater scheme to them,
yes.
especially with Ben and I and what we do, and on that note, the second time that you saw the dweller was when you were learning more about like your family's history too, that you didn't know until after the fact. I feel like this entity, whatever it may be, shows up when we're about to learn something or experience something that we maybe shouldn't yet, or that maybe will be something that completely at a crossroads changes our direction in what we do. But sorry,
Okay.
I'm pointing
No,
towards, but yeah.
what I was going to say is there are points in um in things that you guys are experiencing that sounds an awful lot like an initiation.
That's like the Hellier thing.
Kind of, yeah. It
Yeah,
is.
we were
If
just
you
talking
think
about
about
Yeah,
it.
I just finished season 2 of Hellier like a few days ago.
Oh,
And
did you really?
Have you
I
Okay.
seen
did.
have you seen that show?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I also, when I was watching Hellier, it recalled many different instances where it was just like it was like synchronistic events that were all happening in a line. It was like I was within a flow. There was like a flow, like a river I had stepped into, and I was being carried along by the current. Um, I'm going to tell this real quick story, and then I'm going to let you guys go. You know who C.G. Jung is, right? The psychologist.
Yeah.
He is the one that actually coined the term synchronicity. And he has this great story where how he discovered synchronicity is that he had a patient, a young lady that always something had happened to her. She couldn't break through to discover what it was, but she always, it was the same thing. Every time she got to a point and she had all these dreams, and in these dreams, there was a specific type of beetle that would always show up in her dreams, or whenever she was trying to make these breakthroughs, there would be this beetle, and it was like a wall that she would hit, and this beetle always stopped her. So Jung has her describe this beetle, and he looks at his desk, and the beetle she is describing is on his desk.
Wow.
And he reaches over and he grabs it, and he says, "You mean like this beetle?" And he puts it down in front of her, and she sees it, and her memory comes flooding back, and she remembers being abused by her uncle when she was a little girl, and all she could focus on when this was happening was this beetle that was on the wall. That gives me goosebumps to this day. The hair rises up on the back of my neck. But that synchronicity, that for her healing, how did that beetle end up on his desk? And these
Yeah.
are questions he's asking himself. How did it end up there? But it was there for her to make that breakthrough. So the same things are happening to you guys. You are in the flow. You are in this flow of synchronicity, which is a whole series of initiations that you are going through. And this dweller shows up at key points to like challenge you. Okay, you're going to go further with this? Here we go again. I'm here again. Are you ready to go forward with this? So on that note, I'm going to invite you to come back and talk to me again. And
Hopefully for episode not 1.
no, probably I have a couple of other people that I'm going to interview, and then probably maybe down the line after, maybe we go out and visit this park.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll get back together and do another episode. So we'll get together and we'll talk about that on when we can go there. But thank you for being my very first interview on True Tales of the Supernatural. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys again. And thank you so very much. So I am going to turn this recording off now.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
and we'll end the recording. See everybody later.